Okay, so module 2 is quality assurances or quality assurance in analytical chemistry. Okay. So if we're going to look at this definition of the quality assurance as we go on later, you will see how important it is, at least, okay, in the chemistry profession. Now, we're going to look at it as the overall doon sa laboratory, yung tinatawag nating ISO, International Standards. Okay? So every lab, you want it to be ISO accredited as much as possible. So if you're going to look at this, okay, ISO is just International Organization for Standardization. So what's the use of standards? Anyone? Ano ba yung use ng standard na sinasabi natin? Bakit kailangan natin may standard?
Sir, to maintain consistency and quality.
Okay, to maintain consistency or quality. So imagine kung yung measurements natin walang standard. So sabihin natin, okay? O depende sa size ng ating katawan, right? Because that's where the history of measurements is. A foot is literally the length of a foot. Are you familiar with that? So paano kapag nakikipag-trade ka kay Shaquille O'Neal, kaninong paa ang gagamitin natin? Because obviously you're not going to have the same length of foot, but that's how they put what we call the measurements that they have for the foot. Okay, so they have to have these so-called standards. Okay, now in chemistry we also have this so-called international Organization for Standardization. Ang tawag dyan is ISO. Okay. Is this the first time for you to hear this term?
Hindi naman po, sir.
So you already heard this what we call term na tinatawag nating ISO. Okay? So analytical chemistry being science, we could say analytical measurements are often present and they are really essential. Okay? I think the advantage of analytical chemistry than other chemistry is its focus on measurements. Do you agree with me on that? Nag-agree ba kayo sa akin na among all the chemistry, I think yung main focus ng analytical chemistry is science, right? Pagpunta ka ng orgo, ang main focus doon is what? You synthesize from, let's say, a starting material and to whatever product you have. Whether you have a high yield or a small yield. Bonus na yung mataas yung yield mo. Bonus na yung less steps yung ginamit mo. Okay? Now, in analytical chemistry, you should be what? They have a very essential role in obtaining valid and reliable data from which useful information can be kept. Okay? So, paano natin na-analyze yung quality ng pagkain natin? Paano natin malalaman na yung iniinom nating lambanog ay talagang pure ethanol? At hindi, ano yung alcohol? Methanol, right? I don't know. I want to put it in the perspective. I don't know if you're aware. Years ago, maraming namamatay kapag umiinom ng lambanog. Nabalitaan niyo ba yun?
Opo, sir. Nasa ano po yan, nasa TV tuwing gabi.
And the question that was asked is, why? Okay? Why? So, the best way to do is you check the quality there. Okay? So, if you're going to look at this one, so you analyze it, you get the information, and then from that, you can solve the problem. So, if you have analytical chemistry lab, that's the place where you do the experiment. Okay? And its role is what? You analyze the sample, provide the data on those samples. And then we could say, itong lab na to, it can be located in the industry, in the commercial area, in hospital, okay, in UPLB or academic institution, or in government spaces. Like what you said you want to be when you finish the course. Okay? But kung nasaan man yung lokasyon ng lab mo, okay, it's still, we could say, has the same responsibility. And that is that it will generate measurement that is crucial for the information that you need, especially high quality data. And this high quality data that you get will be useful for you to allow effective decision making. I don't know what's the law there in terms of the amount of drugs that is needed to convict a person. But here in the US, okay, for a person to be convicted, if he is charged with illegal possession of dangerous substances, there's some sort of a rule with respect to the amount of the drugs that the person was found to possess. Okay? And depending on that amount, depende din yung sentensya niya doon. Okay? So, who will determine that amount? So, usually, the lab. And unfortunately, we have a case of an unscrupulous chemist na kung saan nagdadab lang siya. Hindi niya ina-analyze, sasabihin niya, over 10 milligram yan. And it convicted 21,000 persons. And when they found out, okay, that the chemist doesn't do his job, what did they do? They have to release all those convicted or those cases that was handled by the chemist. So anong problema ng laboratory na yun? They didn't follow the procedure that they have. And now that we are in an international setting, okay, so we have to make sure that the lab will do its job to ensure that the quality of the products, okay, is met. Okay? Gaya lang yung lambanog. Bakit sa tingin niyo tumaas yung kaso ng poisoning, alcohol poisoning during the time? Is there quality control? May quality control kaya nun? Ha?
Wala po, probably.
Usually lambanog is what? Marami tayong tinatawag dyan na backyard industry. Alam niyo ba ano ibig sabihin ng backyard industry? Ano ba ibig sabihin ng backyard? Sa bakuran.
Yung hindi pa po registered.
They're not registered. Okay? So, ang nangyari dyan, I think lambanog is the better one. Pero ano yung parang mas mababa pa yung quality sa lambanog? I'm not sure if you are from the rural area. Are you familiar with tuba? Sabihin niyo,
Yes, sir.
manginginom
Yes,
si sir. Alam niya lahat ng alcohol. Tuba is the Donald Trump version of wine. Kasi kulay orange siya eh. Okay. Yung kasing lambanog is usually colorless, right? Doon sa mga taga Quezon. Okay. Now, the thing that I asked you about this one, because I want you to know the needs for us to have this so-called quality control. Kaya pumapasok nga dito yung tinatawag nating ISO. Okay? So if we're going to look at the ISO that we have, this is a non-governmental organization that forms a bridge between the public and the private sectors and is the largest standards organization in the world. Okay, so if you're going to look at this ISO, if you have read already the ISO, how many member bodies that it has? Anyone? Ilan yung full member niya? Kung nabasa niyo yung handout.
121 po, sir.
Okay, so member body is 121. Ilan yung corresponding members?
39 po.
39. And subscriber members are?
4.
4. Okay. So I want you to participate these things. So how do you participate? Basahin niyo yung handout na binigay sa inyo. Pag full members kayo, ano ibig sabihin? Anyone? So it says there, only one standard organization per country. So the Philippines is one of those. So we are only one of the members there. Okay. So if you have a full members, you have the full rights of voting and participation. Yung correspondent members, usually these are developing countries. They do not have a national standards body. They are entitled to the General Assembly meetings, but do not have voting rights. Okay, yung subscriber, this is for very small countries that want to be kept informed of the ISO activities. Now, if you're going to look at the scope of the ISO, it is not limited to any particular branch. Okay, what ISO do is what? It covers. Okay, so yan yung ano, yung blue yung tatawagan nating member bodies. Okay, tapos yung correspondent members dyan, yung yellow. Okay, tapos yung subscribers members, yung black. So ISO covers all standardization fields involving goods, services, and products, with the exception of the electrical and electronic engineering. Okay? Hindi nila kino-cover to kasi meron din kumu-cover sa mga field na to. So if you have this electrical thing, ang nagko-cover dyan ay yung International Electrotechnical Commission. So the IEC handles all matters involving worldwide electronic engineering and electrical standards. Tapos yung ITU, okay, it covers communications, including the internet, radio, cable television, and related industry. Okay? So, meron talagang ibang organization na nagko-cover dito. And if you're going to look at the ISO standards in its online browsing platform in the standard tab, so what it do is it store the tab to access the listing by two modes. So either ICS, and diyan yung Institute of ComSci, okay, or TC. So if you have ICS, what happened here is it classified by subject in accordance to the International Classification for Standards. Pag yung tab niya, in terms of TC modes, it is sorted according to the ISO Technical Committee, responsible for the preparation or maintenance of the standards. Okay? Now, ang question ngayon, paano ka? Okay? makakaano dito sa ISO standard? How are these ISO standards developed? Okay. So if you're going to look at this development that you have, so some of these okay, if you want to develop this ISO standard, you have to follow this so-called 5-stage process. Okay, so the first step that you're going to do is you propose. So when you propose, what do you do? Okay, you call for a new work item proposal before either the TC or the SC. Okay, SC is the subcommittee. Okay, TC is the technical management committee. Okay, so if the proposal is accepted by the TC or the SC, you're going to go to the next step, which is the preparation. So pag propose mo dito, propose mo yan sa SC at sa TC. Kung meron kang new things, okay, or new process or method to what we call propose. Okay, now after it was accepted by the TC and the SC, the second step is the preparation stage, during which the group of experts prepare a working draft. Okay, now when the working draft is forwarded to the TC or SC, then you go already to the third stage or the third step. Okay, so kung saan, okay, yung committee draft stage begins. So at this stage, ano mangyayari? So nag-meet na yung mga expert doon sa work item proposal mo. Okay, so at this stage, dito sa committee draft, there will be additional drafts that are prepared until they reach a consensus among the participating members within the TC or DC or SC. So kapag na-reach na yung consensus, magda-drop naman sila ng international standard. Okay? So at this point, yung CD mo or yung committee draft mo magiging DIS na, Draft International Standard. Okay? And this is circulated to all the ISO members for voting and comment within 6 months. Matagal din. And if it's adopted as a standard, if 2/3 of the participating members approve and no more than 25% of those voting oppose it. So the fifth and the final step is you publish the ISO, the thing that you do in the ISO Central Secretariat. Okay? So ganyan yung step na pina-follow nila. Okay? So the thing that you need to do here is once the ISO standards are developed according to what we call the principles that you have here. So what are these principles? Consensus. Okay. So there's consensus if the views of all interests are taken into account. Okay. The manufacturers, the vendors and the users, the consumer groups, the testing laboratories, the governments, the engineering professions, and research organization. So dapat may consensus sa mga yan. Okay? And then what happened? After this consensus, we could say industry-wise, they will say that there's a global solution to satisfy the industry and the customers worldwide. And then after that, since the international standardization is market-driven, therefore, there's a voluntary involvement of all interests in the marketplace. So it's not an easy task to do these so-called ISO standards. Okay? And it sometimes takes time for it to do. And once you have that, pwede ka na magkaroon ng tinatawag na ISO certification. What does it do? It certifies that the management system, manufacturing process, service, or documentation procedure has all the requirements for standardization and quality assurance. So when you have an ISO certification, this is like the ISO or the IEC. So there's a number that it follows and the year that it was published. So if you're going to look at this, there's the three components, okay? The ISO and the IEC. Okay, so what does these components mean? I think I have it in the next step. So the ISO, the ISE, the prefix, that's denote a joint ISO and IEC publication. Okay, and then the number that comes after the prefix, that's what we call the serial number. It's the number that classifies the standards. And the 2017, that is what we call the year of publication. So represented by the calendar year the standard was launched. Okay, now there are a lot of, we could say, ISO. I think I can, matagal pa, ito tayo later on. But if you have the handout, okay, you will see some of the example there. Ano yung mga example na ISO na nasa handout? Anyone? Ano yung ISO 3166?
Country codes po.
Okay. So, depending on whatever the code that they have, it has a specific application. And it also has a brief definition on it. Okay. You don't need to know that, but at least you need to know anong information or ano yung, let's say, pag may ISO ka or IEC, anong ibig sabihin nun? Ano yung number after nun? Okay, at ano yung year? Okay, so what is the ISO IEC 1705 all about? Ano yan? Tungkol saan? If you look at your notes, it's about
Testing and calibration po.
okay, so testing and calibration laboratory. So I think that yan yung sakto doon sa chemistry. Everyone agree on that? Kasi kung makikita mo yung ibang
Yes,
application, quality management, environmental management, food safety management, okay? So I think if we're going to look at all the examples that was written there, it's the ISO IEC 17025 that is applicable in chemistry. Okay? Now, paano naman napunta tong ISO sa Pilipinas? Okay, siyempre hindi tayo papahuli, right? So, the Philippines took a formal approach to standardization in 1947. When the division of the standard was created under the Bureau of Commerce, Department of Commerce and Industry. Okay? Ano na sa tingin niyo to ngayon? Anong opisina na?
DTI.
Okay? So this is now the DTI. And hirap sa atin pabago-bago yung departamento. Okay? But that's where it started when the Philippines took on what we call formal approach to standardization. Then 17 years after, okay, after realizing the need for standardization in line with the industrial and economic development of the nation, Republic Act 4109, also known as Standards Law, convert the division standards into the Bureau of Standards. Okay. Now, this Bureau of Standards, which became Bureau of the Philippine Standard, BPS, it conferred its present mandate under the various laws, principally RA 4109, yung dating 4109, tapos Executive Order 133 of 1987 and the Consumer Act of the Philippines, RA 7394 of 1992. And through this, it states there, it is the duty of the state through the Bureau of the Philippine Standards to develop and provide safety and quality standards for consumer products, including performance or user-oriented standards, code of practice, and methods of test. Okay? So dapat sila yung nagpo-protect. And then to protect the Filipino consumers and to facilitate international trade in the global market, the Bureau of Philippine Standards formulates the Philippine national standards or even adopts relevant international or foreign standards to help industry produce quality products and services and raise productivity. Ang tanong, are we consumers protected? Ano sa tingin niyo? Protected ba tayo? Yan, share ko muna to. Ano sa tingin niyo?
Tingin ko po, sir, yes, dahil may quality assurance yung products na nako-consume natin.
But how about the products coming to us? Especially the one from China. Right? I have a saying, if it's not created by God, it's made in China. True or false? Di ba? The thing when I went there 2018, the thing that I observed, yung kutsara, the metal spoon and fork, masyado siyang manipis. Compare it to the one that I know when I was there way back, what, 2009? Okay? China, I don't know. The Philippines has been a dumping site and most of the materials right in China. Kahit dito, tawagan namin made in China. Okay? And the problem with them is I don't know if they have their own quality assurance that they have. Have you heard about this fake rice? Fake egg?
Yes po.
Yes
Fake,
po.
fake milk?
Yes.
So instead na milk, ilalagyan nila ng white powder that called, I don't know if you heard the term melamine. Melamine, not melanin. Melanin is more on the skin pigmentation. Right? So do you think they met the ISO thing there? I'm just trying to say it to you because I think there was instances that China considered the Philippines as one of their provinces. Right? But imagine the products that they have. I think they do everything, right? Sasabi ko nga, if it's not created by God, it's probably be made in China. Kaya sabi namin, siguro yung COVID-19 made in China din. I, as a scientist, am beginning to, I think, believe some of the conspiracy theories about the COVID-19 because why is it that it spread out around the world, but China was able to handle it less than a year? Okay? So I'm just trying to relate the thing here, the needs that we have to have what we call these standards. Okay? So some of the quality management systems that we have in our country, so meron ng PNS here, that's Philippine National Standards, ISO 900. So it's still the same, the prefix, the index number, and the year. So quality management system, fundamentals and vocabulary, the 9001 quality management systems and the requirements, and then 9004 quality of an organization guidance to achieve sustained success, and then 19011 guidelines for auditing management system, and so on. In fact, meron pang anti-bribery management system eh. Okay? Now, we focus on the one that we have in our field. So I would say, huwag kayong mabigla kung bakit hindi related sa chemistry to. This is one of the new thing that I was surprised. I said, oh, tinuturo na to sa instrumental about ISO, about standardization. Okay. So we go with the one that is related to it. Product testing, conformity, assessment, and product certification. What's the main problem that we have in our products there? You familiar with this word? Noon, ang pwede lang ipeke yung product. Ngayon, pati news, pwede mo nang ipeke. Diba? Especially juice selection. I just don't want to comment. Baka meron kayong kandidato na gusto niyo na hindi ko gusto. Okay? So, how are we sure that our product conform, okay, or meet the standards that was set? So the Bureau of Philippine Standards offers client third-party testing of products through its BPS testing center to verify conformity to PNS requirements that support the Philippine standard and import commodity clearance product certification schemes. And then this BPS testing center is accredited to ISO IEC 1705. So yung pa rin. Okay. What is ISO 1705 or 25? The testing of the materials. Okay, and it's attested by the Singapore Accreditation Council. Okay. So here, the VPS collaborates with the DTI Regional Operation and Development Group para ma-strengthen yung monitoring and enforcement program and to ensure that standards are met by stakeholders such as manufacturer, importers, distributors, dealers, and retailers of products. Ang tanong, nami-meet ba to? Anyone can answer. You are there in the Philippines than me. Is the DTI able to monitor and enforce the program para ma-meet yung quality?
Hindi po lagi, sir.
Hindi lagi. Right? Ano yung news na inaano nila na umangal yung mga Pinoy? Yung adobo gusto nilang i-standardize. Have you heard that news?
Yes po.
Yes.
Paano mo i-standardize yung adobo? Kasi iba yung adobo na luto ko, maybe sa adobo na luto mo. Ako may toyo at saka ako ay may toyo. Ako ay may toyo suka. And sa'yo maybe may suka or ano pang sangkap. Right? So how are you going to standardize that? Okay. Now, the BPS also implement this mandatory product certification for various building and construction, electrical and electronics, chemical and consumer products under its product certification scheme. Now, products under the BPS list of PS and for mandatory certification cannot be sold or distributed in the Philippines without the necessary Philippine standard or import commodity clearance mark. So dito tayo babalik. Yung bang lambanog, okay, certified siya. Ano sa tingin nyo? I want you to join. So at least, because it affects you. There's another study that says that not all suka are what? Para akong sosin nito eh. Not all suka are natural, right? Do you hear that news?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it was what we call analyzed by PNRI. Then we have some part in the near future about yung suka, kung paano nila analyze using radiochemistry. When you say radiochemistry or radiation. Okay. Meron tayong backyard vinegar industry dyan, right? If it's going to be only sold maybe in the barrio area or in the town area, maybe you don't need it to be certified. But if you want it to be exported or sold, that's the time that you need this product certification, right? Ipapakita ko sa inyo. Anuin ko yung background ko para makita niyo. Sa tingin niyo, certified kaya to?
Opo.
Pwede kaya maybe everyone's favorite. You're familiar with this? Kaso hindi kayo nagdo-dorm. Nasa bahay lang kayo eh.
Yes po,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay?
Gusto niyo po pancit
Nung nagdo-dorm ako, ito lagi pagkain ko. Yellow pa lang siya noon. Nagsisimula pa lang siya. Wala pa siyang ganito. What more? Ganito. Oops. Tataka kayo, ba? Nasa US si sir. May pansit canton. But before they're able to sold or distribute it outside, they have to meet this thing. Yun yung ano doon, requirements na inaano nila. Okay? So ano ko na yung background kasi maya-maya ay mali. Yung anak ko lumalabas. Okay? So that's the thing that there is a regulatory body that supposed to be do this stuff. That's why it's unfortunate that you hear something like an accident because the products that they made is what? Defective. Okay? Now, usually kasi kapag mga backyard industry lang, hindi yan nire-regulate. And what's the consequence that happened? Yung mga nangyayari doon sa Lambanog. I hope you read the article I asked you to read. It was written by a professor from Ateneo, a friend of mine, Sir Guidote, Armando Guidote. Okay? And it doesn't only happen there in the Philippines. 5 to 7 years ago, tourists, American tourists, are suddenly dying in the Caribbean. And they found out the alcohol is also tainted with methanol. Right? Anong backyard industry yung lumaganap ngayong COVID? Anyone? Yung paggawa nung
Mga mask po. Ay,
mas ba? Pwede rin yung
alcohol
mas.
po.
Pero at least yung number one is yung sanitizer, right? Papakita ko sa inyo. Teka lang. So, our governor here, before he was kicked out because of sexual harassment, during the COVID-19, he, ano bang tawag dito? Used the prisoners to have this product. I don't know if you were able to see it. So, NYS Clean Hand Sanitizer. Okay? But before they release it, they have to meet the regulation set. Okay? By whatever agency in charge of it. So right now, lahat ng ano nakabili nito. One of them is our school. So every week I refill it kasi galon-galon yung meron doon. Okay? So that's one of the industry that came up. And there were issues during that time, even here in the US. Kasi hindi nila alam ano yung minimum requirement percentage of alcohol. Do you remember? Para maging effective yung sanitizer mo. Is it 70%? If you recall. So hindi nila alam na kailangan i-meet nila yun. At hindi rin nila alam that not all alcohols are created equal. Some alcohols are so harsh, like methanol. Eh, ano yung alcohol na ginagamit natin from disinfectant? Is it ethanol? Anong alcohol? Anyone?
Pati isopropanol.
Okay, isopropyl alcohol or isopropanol. Okay, ethanol is the one for drinking. Methanol is used for what? Anong other term ng methanol?
Paint thinner po.
Paint thinner ba? Ano yung other name ng alcohol ng methanol? Hindi ba siya yung tinatawag nating denatured alcohol? Saan natin ginagamit yung denatured alcohol? If you're doing
Alcohol
bio.
lamps.
Saan?
Alcohol lamps.
Alcohol lamps. Okay? So isipin mo yung alcohol, yung ginagamit mo sa alcohol lamp, iinumin mo, ay talagang sunog bagang ka doon, di ba? I think you know what the term sunog baga means, right? So literally, if you use methanol, talagang sunog yung baga mo. Okay? Because you use the methanol, okay, as lamp. Yung methanol, yun yung active ingredients ng lamp mo na ginagamit sa bio. Okay? So, if we're going to look at the Philippines, so yung nag-accredit na ngayon yung Formally Accreditation Office, it's the national accreditation body of the Philippines to accredit inspection, testing, and to certifying bodies and other bodies offering conformity assessment services. It is a spin-off from the Bureau of Philippine Standards as a result of the joint resolution of the International Accreditation Forum and the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation. Now, the Philippine Accreditation Bureau operates its accreditation schemes in accordance with the PNS ISO IEC 17011-2017, the general requirements for accreditation bodies accrediting conformity assessment bodies as well as other applicable guidance document. Okay? So ito yung nag-aano ngayon, nagpa-facilitate no accreditation lahat ng products, yung PAC. Okay? So the one that is overall in charge here now is the so-called DTI. And I hope the DTI is doing its part to protect us. Okay? Now, we go to the one that is related to ourselves kasi parang major tapos magiging specific tayo. QMS. So if we're going to look at QMS, that's the quality management system. Okay, so in any laboratory, there's always some level of inaccuracy that is always present. I don't know if you agree with me. There's no such thing as exact measurement. Tama? Can we measure exactly?
No, sir. Certainly not.
Okay. In your experience, naka-measure na ba kayo ng exactly 1.000 grams na material? Okay. I don't know how you're trained, but I train my students in such a way, when you do the measurement, you just weigh as close as to the amount that you're given. And you have to write whatever that comes out in your balance. So there's always a degree of uncertainty because there's no such thing as exact measure. There's always uncertainty in every measurement. Okay. The most important thing is you know about this limitation, you know about this uncertainty, and all you need to do is minimize this uncertainty that you have. Ito yung problema. So sa tingin ng iba, yung small error na ginagawa nila ay acceptable, but it's going to have like a significant effect doon sa complex system. Okay? And when we're talking about complex system, maybe it's just started in a lab, but it's going to mess up the whole industry. Okay? I'm not sure if you heard some news that sometimes some company has to pull out some of its products. Are you familiar with aflatoxin? Alam niyo ba yung aflatoxin? Saan related yung aflatoxin?
Sir, may sa peanut butter dati.
Yep. Alam mo yung company?
Hindi. Parang walang peanut butter.
Yan yung company. I don't know if they still exist. The problem with aflatoxin, if the peanut was not dried properly, you form this toxin. Okay? So the quality control should be the one, or the quality, the laboratory should be the one to look at it. Okay? So whenever you have a quality, what we call chemical laboratory, it's a complex system involving professionals and technicians as well as diverse protocols designed for laboratory samples. Meron pa rin lilis, pero siguro they learn already. Okay? Because it can kill your business. Okay? Now, in a chemical lab, hindi lang dyan tauhan ang meron. Meron din dyan mga protocol na dine-develop nila at kailangan nilang sundan. Okay? So, bakit siya complex? Because I don't know if you but one person and another person is what? Much better than just one person? Or it's more complicated than one person? Pag mas marahig kang tauhan, di ba? Mas magulo. So if you have a chemical laboratory, hindi lang naman isa yung trabahador dyan eh. Okay? And what makes it complicated is you have some system in place that you have to utilize. You have some processes or procedures that you need to be followed. And being in chemistry, it should be of the highest level of accuracy and reliability. Okay? So paano ma-address yan? to make sure that they follow these processes, the procedures. Okay? So dyan papasok yung QMS. Quality Management System. It manages the system. Okay? It ensures that quality is met. So these are coordinated activities to direct and control an organization with regards to quality. Ang UP ba may quality? Sa tingin nyo? Do we have a QMS in UP? Ano sa tingin nyo? Na. I think we have. Paano kayo nakapasok sa UP? May upkat pa kayo, di ba?
Opo.
So that's one way to ensure that there's quality or quality is observed. Okay? Kasi kung hindi ka what we call pumasa sa upkat, either doon ka sa dilusot sa UP o di kaya ang daming mali sa UP o sa upkat ni university. I don't know if you know what I mean. Okay? So there's a quality that you have to what we call follow. Okay? If it's in the laboratory, it address all aspects of the laboratory operation, organizational structure, processes, and procedures to assure quality. And that's the one that makes it complicated. Tayo nga lang sa Facebook status, kapag hindi natin naintindihan yung buhay, sasabihin natin complicated. So what more if you have an organization that has to work to meet the expectation that is given to you? Okay? So if you're going to look at this quality management principle, so maybe this is some sort of a summary that you have. I just get this from your handout. Okay, lahat ng inaano ko nasa handout. So this is, we could say, the 7 quality management principles. Okay, so if you're going to look at that, you can read about the 7 quality principles. So customer focus. What does customer focus means? You can start from this one. Okay. So let's say if you have a product that you're selling, so what's the main goal? Satisfy mo yung customer mo. Okay. And then you should have a good leadership in your organization. You engage people. Tapos yung process, yung approach nyo sa process, so as much as possible, you want your product to improve. Right? Gaya ng pansit canton, nagsimula siya sa yellow. Tapos naging yung calamansi. Tapos yung maanghang, and then yung calamansi na maanghang. Okay? So that's the improvement that they have. Ano pang ibang product na meron kayo? Yung M&M. May M&M ba sa Pilipinas?
Opo.
So nagsimula ang M&M doon sa sa brown, di ba? Yung maliliit. Tapos nagkaroon ng peanut butter, yung peanut, pati jalapeno. Okay? So that's how what we could do, the improvement that you have. And usually, when you make a decision, it should be evidence-based. So usually, ang ginagawa nila, nagsa-survey pa sila. So ano yung masasabi nyo dito? Okay? Tapos yung advertisement sa atin dyan, di ba? Mga brown X, brown Y. Dito, wala. Kung sino yung kalaban, Pepsi or Coke, talagang sasabihin yun. Okay? And then the relationship of the management. So how they are related doon sa ibang tao, sa mga tao nila sa ilalim nila, and then go back again to the customer focus. It's just the what we call quality management principle. This is more on business side or management side. Okay. Now, if we're going to look at this, so meron tayong Q dito. Yung quality control, quality assurance, and quality management. Why do you think I arrange it this way? So, ano yung difference ng dalawa? So, magsimula tayo maybe doon sa gitna. So, you have quality control, quality assurance, and quality management. Okay? So, if you're going to look at this, so another way to look at this doon sa handout natin, eh ganito. Pag quality control daw, it's all on the products. So when you're talking about quality control, what you have there is you look at the operational techniques and activities that used to fulfill requirements for quality. Quality control is targeted at production activities, and QC measures can be implemented in short notice. So for example, the QC is achieved by sampling and testing to find defects in the product and remove defective products whenever possible. So I'm trying to, but I think I don't have that slide. Are you familiar with the iPhone before? I think iPhone 5, iPhone 6. Ano bang iPhone yun na? Alam niyo yung problema sa iPhone noon? I'm going to share to you some photo. Are you familiar with this or masyadong bata pa kayo nung nangyari to? Yung tinatawag namin Bengate, iPhone 6. Okay? So what do you think the one who is culprit there? Sino may kasalanan? Pwede ba natin sabihin yung QC ang may kasalanan nun? Kasi as mentioned nga, ang QC daw, it involves the operational techniques and activities that are used to fulfill the requirements for quality. Okay? So what the QC do is achieve by sampling and testing to find defects on the product. So kaninong kasalanan niyang Bengate na yan? Can we say it's in QC? Huh? Class? There, the products. So, kung inayos nila yung QC nila, wala na silang problema. Hindi na sila aabot nitong what we call products na ganito. Okay? Now, let's go on the QA. How can we say about this quality assurance? So if you're going to look at the slide that we have here, quality assurance is what? Aside from the products, it involves the processes. So if you're going to look at the quality assurance, I have the note there. It includes all those planned and systematic actions necessary to provide adequate confidence that a product or service will satisfy given requirement for quality. QA would includes educated, trained, and skilled staff. Specified requirements for all chemical grades from reference material to reagent. So as you go on, you will realize that if you say HCl, pag nag-order ka, may HCl na analytical grade, may HCl na at this purity, okay? So QA would also have suitable equipment calibrated and maintained. The suitable laboratory environment. Why do we have to deal about this? Because this will affect processes. Documented and validated methods. Quality control procedures, check procedures for reporting and quality control, okay, use of proficiency testing, quality system supported by quality manager and documentation, and this is the thing, a complaint procedure. Okay. So if you're going to look at QA, we could say it involves all those planned and systematic actions necessary to provide adequate confidence that a product or service will satisfy given requirements for quality. Okay? Yung QC naman involves the operational techniques and activities that are used to fulfill requirements for quality. And this may include routine analysis of quality control samples with results recorded on control charts, blanks, replicates like duplicates and triplicates, reference materials, spike samples, and blind samples. Furthermore, if we're going to put QA and QC, QA we could also say as a medium to long-term process and cannot be quickly implemented. QA, on the other hand, usually targeted at the production activities, and QC measures can be implemented in short notice. So yan yung difference, ha? Watch nyo yan doon sa quiz niyo. Okay? QA, long-term, QC, pwedeng short notice. Okay? QA mainly focus on improving the process in terms of how things are delivered or made. Okay? And we could say QA describes, okay, the general quality procedures requirements for a laboratory. Okay? Yun yung QA. Long-term focuses on improving the process in terms of how things are delivered or made, and generally QA describes the general quality procedures requirements for a lab. Yung QC, okay, told you, short notice, okay, it's usually achieved by sampling and testing to find defects in the product and remove the defective products whenever possible. And QC procedures ensure the reliability of specific samples of or batches of samples. Okay? Now, ang nag-aano sa lahat ng ito ay yung tinatawag natin quality management, which is covered already on this one. So, questions so far?
None po, sir.
Before we go to some of the term. So meron tayong tinatawag na GLP, GMP, at SOP. Okay? So GLP describes general laboratory operations that we must follow in any analysis. And these practices include properly recording data and maintaining records. So I don't know how this is being done when your laboratory is online. Here, I always ask my students to have notebook, and I always ask them to record it. They always said what? Oh, it's recorded in our mind, and then after some time, they already forget about the data. They do not know that it's a good practice for them. Okay, as a lab analyst or a chemist, excuse me. Okay, they use chain of custody form for samples. Are you familiar with chain of custody form? Are you familiar on that? Class?
No, sir.
Whenever, okay, you have a sample or a specimen, let's say during the Olympics, they collected the urine of an athlete. So what happened? Once they collected the urine, there's a chain of custody form. So what does it do? It tells what the sample is all about, or what the sample is, okay? Who collected this, what's the time, what's the condition. And once it transferred to another person or another place, there's another one that put data on it or information about it. So parang makikita nila saan napupunta yung sample. Yun yung chain of custody. So sinong humawak doon. And it plays a big role in trials. Okay? Once they found out that there's some, we could say, problem in the chain of custody, they can question the results of your analysis. It happened here. There's a baseball player, okay, who used PED. I don't know if you know what PED is, performance enhancing drugs. So what they do, they look at the chain of custody and they found out that there's a lag between the transfer of the sample from Milwaukee, where it was collected, going to Montreal. There's a lag of 18 hours. And they question it to say that in that 18 hours, something may happen to that sample. And they won. But a year after, okay, when there's another what we call testing, they found out that the player was using performance enhancing drugs. You know how legal means, okay, if you have the money, okay, they can go on some legal means to prevent you from going to jail. Okay? So yun yung good laboratory practice, some of the stuff that they have there. Okay? Specifying and purifying chemical reagents. That's a good laboratory practice. Preparing commonly used reagents. Cleaning and calibrating glassware. Training laboratory personnel and maintaining the laboratory facilities and general laboratory equipment like duplicate or triplicate. So that's good laboratory practice. So we go to the next one, good measurement practice. It describes those operations specific to a technique. So we could say in general, the good measurement practices, this just provide instruction for maintaining, calibrating, and using equipment and instrumentation. For instance, okay, a GMP for a titration describes how to calibrate the Buret if required. How do you calibrate Buret? Anyone? Do you know how to calibrate your Buret? So if you want to calibrate your Buret, you put some water there. Okay, and then what you do, you have a glassware. So let's say you want to collect 5 ml. Okay, so the collecting glassware that you have, you weigh it and then maybe tare it so it will be 0. And then you collect the 5 ml sample that you have there, and then you weigh it and see if you have 5 grams. So if you have 5 grams of the 5 ml, so that means your Buret is fine, because the density is 1 grams per 1 ml. Okay, so that's a good measurement practices. Standard operations procedure. Okay, this describes the direction for analyzing a specific analyte in a specific matrix. So what the SOP indicates is the process, or how we process the sample in the lab. How we separate the analyte from potential interference. Okay, the SOP can be developed and used by a single laboratory, or it may be SOP approved by an international organization. What is the one of the good organization, or what we call, I think it's an organization, okay, that is followed by chemists. Are you familiar with AOAC? Anyone?
No po, sir.
Anyone familiar with AOAC?
Sir, sa food chem ba po yan?
No,
Food ano?
I mean, food chem, but hindi lang naman sila food chem. Okay? AOAC is what? Association of Official Agricultural Chemists. So nagde-develop sila ng mga tinatawag natin standardized method. Tapos meron din yung tinatawag na EPA. Meron din tinatawag na not FAD, FDA. So FDA is the one in the food and drugs. EPA is in the Environmental Protection Agency. Okay, so they develop a standard procedure that is approved by them. And usually we just follow it. Okay, and then we also have this so-called PSP. So this is the most detailed of the written quality control directive before an agency or a client will accept our results. Okay, and I think I still put some QA/QC more here para maintindihan niyo. Okay, so this is different with what that I have. So maybe dito tayo mag-e-end. So we say QA is encompasses a set of procedures designed to ensure the reliability of laboratory analysis. It's process-oriented and focused on defect prevention. QC encompasses a set of procedures designed to validate the measurement quality. It's product-oriented and focused on defect identification. Okay? So QA plan activities designed to ensure that the quality control activities are being properly implemented. QC plan activities designed to prevent a quality product. And this is defined by AOAC. Question. I think we will end here. It's already what? Almost 12 there. 12 here, so it's almost 1 there. Tanong.
And so far,
Wala naman po.
Lahat ba kayo nakapag-quiz na? So may quiz ulit tayo next week after nito. Have you heard anything from the other section?
Wala pa raw po silang ganap.
What do you mean wala pa silang?
Wala pa pong pinapagawa sa kanila.
Oh? Hindi sila nagmi-meet.
Ay, nag-meet po pero wala pa pong pinapasagutan.